Welcome, everyone. I'm Sue Barber, author, former IT director for a Fortune 500 company, turned executive coach, and this is the Visibility Factor podcast, where we explore how to raise your visibility and play bigger at work and in life. We'll explore key topics and welcome guests that help you shift your thinking about yourself so you can see new possibilities for your leadership. I'm on a mission to create a visibility movement for leaders to show their value and be seen for their true talent. Are you ready to take the next step towards a higher level of visibility for yourself? Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Visibility Factor podcast. This is Sue Barber, your host. I am so excited today to bring you my friend, Mary Olson-Menzel, who has written a book called What Lights You Up. And you are going to learn so much today that you are going to be able to use immediately in your professional life. I would love to have her introduce herself to you and all the amazing things that she's done throughout her multiple careers, honestly. And so I'll let you start with that.
Thank you, Sue. I'm so happy to be here. And yes, I have had many pivots in my career, which is why I'm the expert on able to write a book like What Lights You Up. But I started my career as a television reporter. And then quickly pivoted, you can read all about it in the book, but quickly pivoted into recruiting, where somebody suggested that I take my interviewing skills and put them in a different direction. And what I realized was that recruiting, I loved it so much because I could help people. I could help people find jobs. And then I spent many years in tech and corporate America in media. And at the media company that I worked at in Chicago, I was trained to be a coach as well. And so I was doing executive recruiting and leadership work and all kinds of exciting things, mergers and acquisitions. And then when we moved to New York, which is where I'm based now, which was, believe it or not, 17 years ago, I worked for a couple different firms and then started my own 14 years ago. And it was like jumping off a cliff with a little bit of a net, but it has been the most joyous and exciting and wild ride ever.
Oh my gosh. Well, there's so many places we could start, but I think we go back to the beginning a little bit. So help me understand what made you choose to go into working for a media company. And for anybody who's in the Chicago area, you've definitely heard of this company.
Yes. You know, it's interesting because my parents always used to say, you are a ray of sunshine, but you are so curious. And, you know, I have just this innate curiosity about people and the story and who they are and what makes them tick. So, you know, the news and journalism and media was just very, very attractive to me because I really wanted to know everybody's story. And that translated so well into recruiting because I got to ask everybody their story as well. And actually then do something that was even more meaningful, which was help them find a job and thrive in their careers. But yes, in Chicago is my home. New York is my home now, but Chicago is my hometown. And yeah, Tribune Company and WGN are very special to me.
Yeah. Yes, we watch them all the time. So that's a bucket list item for me at some point, maybe to get on there. And I know you had an appearance on their show talking about your book, which must have been really an amazing moment for you.
It was. And I posted about it on LinkedIn. It was such a full circle moment. I hadn't been back at the WGN studios or in the WGN offices in over 20 years. And walking back into that building and walking onto that set for a totally different reason, talk about something that I'm so passionate about it was a pinch me full circle moment. It was really, really, really great.
Yes, I imagine. So what led you to leave there and go to the next part of your career?
Well, there were a couple of different factors. And for those of you in the Chicagoland area, and if you have memories back to 2008, Tribune Company was taken over by an ESOP and by a gentleman by the name of Sam Zell. And that kind of blew up the corporate offices, which I was a part of. And simultaneously, my fiance at the time, believe it or not, had to move to New York for personal reasons. And so it was, this perfect storm of circumstances where I left Tribune Company and we moved to New York. And I went to go work for a search firm based here in New York. And what I realized was that I missed the strategic direction of really being inside of corporate America and being able to help people, being able to help them thrive in their jobs, able to help them get promoted, hiring them, et cetera, et cetera. And so I worked for this firm for just a little bit, then found out I was pregnant. And so actually ended up taking on a bunch of consulting roles for the months that I was pregnant because the job that I was in just wasn't a good fit. And that was really the very first time in my career that I knew in my heart it wasn't, well, it was the second time in my career that I knew in my heart that it wasn't a great fit. And so talked it over with my husband, had some really great opportunities to do advisory work and consulting work, and I did that. From there, I worked for another firm, helped another Chicago-based search firm build their presence in New York, and then just decided to take that leap of faith and build my own.
So I want to go back because this happens to a lot of people, and I think they get stuck here where they probably feel something inside that says this isn't a good fit. And I'm wondering, was there any specific list of things that happened for you to get to your decision to leave? Or was it just a feeling that you really just trusted yourself?
It was both. So it was very interesting because as I just mentioned, simultaneously, I was in this job and I was also pregnant and didn't know it at the time. So I was crying on the way to work. And my husband's like, "You're so emotional." I'm like, "Oh, this job just doesn't feel like it's feeding my soul." And then I find out that it was probably hormones and that. But it was truly that feeling where when you walk into an office and you know you're where you're supposed to be and you're doing what you want to do, you feel excited to go to work. Not every day, but most days. And this was one of those situations where I felt those Sunday scaries that people talk about. And I had never felt those before. And it was very, very jarring to me because, here I am, somebody who for a living helps people thrive and helps people do well in their careers. To be feeling that, I thought, wow, I have to do something about this. This is a moment where I have to create a plan for what can be next for me.
And I love that you took the leap of faith because I know that you've helped so many people since then. So talk about how you really thought about creating your company and what you wanted it to be and how you wanted it to show up in the world.
Great question. So I had worked, in corporate America, I had worked with many search firms in my time. And what I wanted to do was create something that was a little bit different, recreate some of the very, very deep relationships that I had with our clients at our business units, the CEOs of all of our TV stations and our newspapers at Tribune Company, and recreate a place where if I got an executive search opening, I would immerse myself in that company's culture in order to find them the best, not only skill set fit, but cultural fit. And so 50% of my company was retained executive search at the time. And then 50% was executive coaching. And what we offered that was very different back in 2012 was that when we would place somebody in a role, we would stay on and coach them through their first 3 months so that they could be guaranteed, or hopefully more often guaranteed, success in that role. And then that started to create more and more coaching opportunities as well. So it was recruiting and coaching and really doing it in a way where we were thinking about the whole human being, not just the resume with the skill set, really thinking about the whole human being. Are they going to fit into this culture? Is this going to be a place where they can actually do well and have a future?
The thread that's woven all the way through her career is all about people, helping them to be successful, helping to understand them, and helping them to succeed. And I love that you have continued to do that. So I want to pivot into your book now because I know that there's a lot of great stuff that everybody can learn from that. So let's first talk about how you came up with the title.
Wow. The title, well, there were so many people who had input into this title, but I have to give credit to the first person that made me think about light. And that was a woman who was a mentor, an advisor, and a friend by the name of Leah Comaico. She's a branding expert in Southern California. And she had written several books herself and was just such a beautiful, wise soul. And my birthday she goes back, when she's talking to people about book titles, she actually goes back to your childhood. And she said, tell me about, your favorite childhood book and when you were born and all of these things. Well, I happened to be born on Christmas Eve during the season of lights for many religions. And what we ended up tapping into is that is the thing that can be the through line for people. When they tap into their own inner light, they can light up the world around them. And so there was that. So Leah planted that seed for me many, many years ago. And then Wiley, my publisher, just took it to the next level. And we went back and forth, with about, 20 different titles. And we finally landed on What Lights You Up.
I just think it's something that people ask others, right? When they're thinking about what is it that you want to do next? And that might be a question that they get.
It's out there now, Sue. I've seen something from Maria Shriver talking about, the light inside. I've seen Mel Robbins talking about it. I've seen Gabby Bernstein talking about it. I'm like, everybody's talking about
everybody.
Whether they've read my book or not, I don't know.
So what is it that you want people to know about your book and how will it help them?
Yes. So the book is based on a 10-step methodology that I created 12 years ago to help people tap into their own inner light, their own superpowers, their own skills, recognizing all of that, and then to create a roadmap to help them find a job that they love or to help them thrive in the job that they are in. So, this was 12 years ago. I created this based on my years of experience in recruiting and coaching. And what happened was it became so wildly popular and so successful because people were coming out with jobs and, great stories that then they were like, can you help my wife? Can you help my husband, my niece, my nephew, my, son, my daughter? And, I couldn't clone myself or my team. We're small and mighty, but, we are only human beings. And so that's why I wrote the book, just so that I could help people who don't have access or the means to hire a coach. Originally, I wrote it just the 10-step program, stories, success stories, a how-to book. But Wiley actually pushed me to put some of my leadership lessons into it. And so I think because of them, it's a better book. It's more robust. It really takes you from, I'm in the fog. I don't know where to go. I don't even know what lights me up. How do I do that? And then it takes you through a whole roadmap and a whole design, lots of exercises, lots of actionable things in the book to help you interview, network, negotiate a job. But then how do you actually create success after you've landed in that job? How do you become a leader, even if you're not a leader of people? And then I wrap it up with a big bow around paying it forward and creating gratitude in everything you do.
So what are the top, 2 or 3 things that people talk to you most about your book and that has worked well for them?
It's interesting. It's really resonating with so many different audiences, which makes me so happy. I would say the biggest are obviously people who are kind of feeling lost or stuck and who really need direction and hope in their careers. But what has also been really great is it's resonating in corporate America as well. And with that, it's more, how do I create success and how do I find opportunities within my own organization? Or if companies are starting to go through layoffs, they ask me to come in and do a speaking event or a workshop to help people create opportunity out of chaos or to prepare for whatever might be next. So it's really kind of taken on a life of its own, which makes me really happy because I get to help people all over the world.
Yeah, I always find it so interesting, even with my own books, like I'll say secondary or third level audiences of people who are using it, because it depends where they are in the season of their life.
Yes.
To some extent too, right? And if you could think about the change that you really would love your book to make in the world, like, is there one sentence that you could share with people that would really inspire them to pick it up?
Yes. And I think about this a lot. Of course, we as writers really think about, what's the impact we want on the reader? And if there's one thing, there's so many things, but if there's one thing, it would be that you are not stuck, that you have the power to change your life. You just need the tools and you need to put in the work and the effort and the deep soul searching, but you are in the driver's seat of your career and you have the power to make a change. It might take a while. You need to have patience, but it's within your grasp. And I want people to have that hope and that feeling that there is direction, no matter where they are today.
I love that because I think a lot of people are afraid to ask for help, or they might be feeling like they'd be seen as weak or, or embarrassed or ashamed, right? I think that is definitely how I grew up. You have to do it all by yourself. What do you think would help people be more comfortable with asking for help in this situation? Because there are so many people struggling right now with losing jobs and struggling even in the companies that they're in.
Absolutely. And it is a really great question. And it is a really uncomfortable question for people, as we said, and especially us Midwesterners. We're like, bootstrap it. Never let them see you sweat. Well, you know what? We're all sweating at times, right? And we're all human beings, and we all need to lean in to help each other. And there's a whole chapter in the book about this. But if you are uncomfortable asking for help, flip the narrative. Ask somebody how you can help them. And to me, that is a really organic and human way to connect. I have this thing that I talk to with clients every day. If you're in a job search, utilizing your LinkedIn feed quite a bit. And I call it the LinkedIn hour of power, where somebody just comes and they have their morning cup of coffee or their evening beverage, spending time on their LinkedIn newsfeed. But the only way to do that is to make sure that you're following all the companies that you admire, that you're following the people who inspire you, and that you're connecting with other human beings. So when you come from that authentic connection point, like, hey, I care about you. I care about how you're doing. And I'd love to know how I can help you with my own skill set. Then you open up a very, very organic conversation where most people will then also say, and how can I help you in return?
Mm-hmm. Yes, building reciprocity. I love that. So in my experience, when I have suggested that to people, they say, I don't know what to say. I haven't talked to this person in 3 years. What do I say to them? So what is the way that they can start to add value or have the conversation even to begin to just reconnect with the person?
Well, I think first I would say don't put so much pressure on yourself. It can be so simple. It can be a quick check-in. Hey, Sue, I haven't talked to you in 3 years. You crossed my mind the other day. How are you? That's it. It can be so simple. It doesn't have to be overly thought out. It doesn't have to be overly calculated. It's all about human connection and building and sustaining those relationships so that when you do need help.
I always think about it like a circle. Like you have this group of people you probably talk to on a regular basis. And then you really need to start expanding that circle into a much bigger circle. And how many more people could that be? And if you just did one a week, reconnect with one person a week, it's another 52 people. Yeah. So I think if people make it hard, I agree with you. It's not as complex as they're making it, but there is some fear and apprehension, and maybe they're not as strong at social media. And so it just feels scary to them.
Absolutely. And it is scary, right? Being vulnerable, putting yourself out there, that's scary. It's scary stuff. And rightly so. You're allowing yourself to be vulnerable, but that's okay. And when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you allow others to be vulnerable too. And that vulnerability is where the human connection comes, and referrals, right? Your network. I mean, Sue, you and I are connected through a referral. So, correct. That's the beautiful thing. You lean in and you talk to somebody in your network and you say, gosh, this is what I'm struggling with. And then that person, because they care about you, because you have a relationship, says, oh, well, you should meet Sue, you should meet Joe, and then that web, that beautiful web of connection just continues to expand. Some people call it a constellation, right? A constellation of stars that are out there in the universe to help each other.
Yeah, I think it is much easier now. In the beginning, for me, even, it was a challenge. But I think, the more you get used to it and just realize it's no different than, talking to your neighbor. You're just not talking to them in person. You're talking to them online, and, you can reach more people that way. So I think it actually expands people's reach in a much bigger way.
It does. I mean, we're really lucky. And I think, gone are those days of like, going to a networking event and handing somebody your business card. And, there's still networking events, but they feel a little bit more organic and less formulaic than when you and I were growing up.
Yeah.
So I always say to people who are introverted and don't feel comfortable with this, exactly what you just said, start talking to friends. Then those friends are going to introduce you to friends and so on and so on. And, if you think about it as a constellation, right, that all these stars are shining and helping each other, we all shine brighter.
I love that. Goes right along with your light. If you think about where people are at right now, and so many people are probably a little frustrated, right? There's a lot of change and AI is coming and they don't know what that means. And a lot of decisions are being made on the basis of that, probably in some cases. What is your advice for people to start to help themselves navigate this new world?
There's a book out there that I think is really important. And I do think our books are very important, but there's a great book that's out there in the public domain called Strength Finders. And what I would tell people is lean into your strengths, right? I mean, we all in the US for many years, we thought, oh gosh, I'm not good at accounting, so I need to take a finance class. No, I would say the opposite. I would say, tell me what you're good at and let's let that shine. And so I really think it's about, how do we tap into where our own natural gifts are and then look at where are those opportunities within my organization that I can expand my skill set based on what I'm good at. Because this is a time where there is a lot of chaos and a lot of noise. And it's really hard to stay clear if you can't be clear in your heart, right? And, in your soul and in your mind. So deep breaths, whatever you need to do, meditation, workouts, whatever it is, conversations with friends, because that will be the determining factor, right? The more you can add value in your organization, the less they're likely to, let you go, unless it's a fully numbers decision. And there are those too. So I'm not saying, take it personally when you get laid off. Sometimes it's just a numbers decision for an organization, but also to prepare ahead of time, because there is no quote unquote safe place right now. So being prepared just in case, even if you're in a job you love, having that resume ready, making sure your LinkedIn profile is robust, making sure that those connections are happening, even if they're one a week, and then making sure that if something does start to happen, you don't feel blindsided.
A lot of people talk about LinkedIn as almost like the new resume for a lot of people. And I think it's something that people aren't as comfortable working on. They think that they just need to do the resume, maybe a cover letter. But if your resume isn't matching your LinkedIn, then there's going to raise some red flags with recruiters and other people looking at this. So I'm just curious your perspective on that as well.
Yes. So the way I think about it too is your resume, the average recruiter looks at a resume, or a hiring manager looks at a resume for 7 seconds, literally 7 seconds. That might pique their interest, and then they'll go immediately to your LinkedIn profile and say, okay, what is this person doing? What are people saying about them? Who are they connected to? Do we have any mutual connections? That's why LinkedIn is so important. And so you really think about it, it's a lot of the currency these days, right? What you're putting out there, you can create some thought leadership, which you and I do on LinkedIn. It's about adding value again and saying, okay, how can I connect with people? How can I help people with my own natural gifts? Really knowing that LinkedIn matters. And it's in my book as well. There's some LinkedIn tips and tricks. And there's also tips on how to reach out to people on LinkedIn if you feel uncomfortable.
So important. I love good tips and tricks because you just never know.
Yep.
So I'm just curious of any things that you advise people when they're planning for this transition into a new company.
Yes, those first 30, 60, 90 days are crucial. You're kind of in that honeymoon stage, but you're also seeing, what's happening behind the curtain as well. And so I really encourage people, work with your leader and make a plan. And if your leader hasn't made you an onboarding plan already, make one yourself, right? Meet with every key stakeholder that will, be involved in anything that you're doing. Make sure that you're meeting with your peers for cross collaboration. It's about soaking it all up in those first couple of months and getting to know as many people as you can, and asking that question, what lights you up here at work? What keeps you up at night here in this
Yeah.
office or on the screen? And then how can we work together to make this a better place?
And I think asking a question like that, like what lights you up? What gets you out of bed in the morning? Why are you still here after all these years if they've been there a number of years? Or what made you join the company? It may remind that person even about their own light, right?
And, luckily in my book, I have a list of questions that you can ask people in these first meetings. I give people a cheat sheet for every step of the way. And I do think, we can't forget companies are run by humans, right? For now. And, no matter what happens with AI, we all need to learn about it. We all need to understand how to use it. We all need to also understand how it can make our jobs easier and help us. But we also have to realize that there's no substitute for our in energy, for the human element, for empathy and creativity and curiosity. Those are the things that AI doesn't bring to the workplace, and we do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you talk about things from a human perspective. I think it's so important. And through whatever transition people are going through, they need that support. They need people to help them be motivated and help them navigate the tough days, right?
Looking for a job is a full-time job in itself. So if you have a full-time job and you're looking for a job, take good care of yourself, because that is really stressful. And so that self-care is key, and staying centered. I was speaking to a client about this yesterday. She's in the middle of a job search, and because of the way that the world is looking right now, it's taking a little bit longer than we all expected. And she was getting frustrated. And somebody's telling me this, and then another person's telling me this. And I said, don't listen to everyone. Listen to your gut. There's a lot of noise out there, and everybody's got an opinion about what you should or shouldn't do, and only you can decide what is right for you. So don't forget to listen to your own wisdom. We're all experts in something, but, really, truly, you can listen to our advice, but also listen to your own. Don't discount your own inner voice.
And I want to segue into leadership for a moment, because I think what you just shared is so important for leaders to trust their own voice, to trust their own decisions, just believe in themselves and their confidence and that they know what to do. I'm curious what you see right now in the workplace. Maybe what are the top 2 or 3 things that leaders could be doing to really help themselves?
To help themselves. I think, trusting your people. Each individual needs to probably be managed a little bit different, and realizing that, leadership is not one size fits all. It is really, truly about, okay, what's the culture of my company? What are the initiatives driving us? And then who do I have around me to help get this done? So really, it comes into, gone are the days. Well, there are still some leaders out there that are very patriarchal and, my way or the highway, but that is shifting. And the most effective and most powerful leaders are the ones who understand how to motivate and inspire each of their employees. And those leaders, they're allowed to be human too. You're allowed to say, I don't know the answer to this, but guess what? Together, we're going to figure it out. That humility is really important as a leader too. And I think that was one of the silver linings of, 2020. And, when we all saw each other on screen and kids were running by and dogs were barking and everything else, that kind of humanized a lot of the CEOs out there in the world. And I think that really helped, because the ones who allowed themselves to be human and, kind of in this with their teams were the ones that had, teams who were like, hey, I'm going to do anything I can to help create success for all of us.
Now, it's such a trying time. The unknown, the uncertainty for everybody, a lot of anxiousness, and leaders trying to figure out, how do I lead remotely a team of people? Maybe it was their first time ever doing it. So I think it brought out a lot of challenges for people to navigate. And we're in some ways better for it because it allowed everyone to get creative, a little more innovative in what they would do with their teams and how they did it. And one of my clients onboarded an entire team across the country during pandemic. And
Oh,
she was like, how do I bring these people together? And it's amazing some of the things she did. So I wrote about her in the workbook because
yes.
she did some amazing things that I think people can learn from. And it's not as hard as, we were talking about earlier. It's not really hard, but sometimes people make it hard and it doesn't have to be.
Right. Right. If we all just remember that no matter what our title is, we are all human beings, that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Right?
Step one.
Yeah. Step one, we are all human beings.
Yeah. It's the easiest one to remember, hopefully. Is there anything that you want to share about what you're doing in your business or your book that I haven't asked you about?
Oh gosh, so much, so much. How much time do we have, Sue? I think that the book is kind of my love letter to people, right? And it's truly people at all levels it's been resonating with, like people who are getting ready for retirement. They said, wow, this is actually helping me plan for retirement. Kids coming out of college, young adults, I would call them kids, they're young adults, coming out of college, who are looking for direction. So at every level, executives in transition, mid-level managers, it's really a beautiful thing because I think there's something for everyone. But I do think that, if anybody needs that hope, that motivation, or to feel like they have a coach in their pocket with a book, what lights you up is for them. And then also kind of looking at where are the real life success stories and reading about some of those so that they can see that it can be them. They could be the next success story.
Right. Yeah. It creates possibilities for people who may not be able to see it in their, specific world that they're a part of. I love that you called it a love letter. That's so amazing. And I know, I
Yeah.
know that's how you feel because you're just so authentic about how you want this book to change people and help them.
Yes. And I have to give my stepdaughter Samantha credit for that because when we did our book launch party in Chicago, actually, she did the opening statements and she was the one who coined that. She said, this is a love letter to humanity by my stepmom.
Oh
So
my gosh.
it does. Yeah.
Were you in tears when you heard that?
I was like, yeah. Beautiful
Oh my
words.
gosh. Oh,
So
that's
true.
beautiful.
So
Yeah.
true.
Maybe another future writer in the family there.
She's graduated with her master's in social work, so she's got to find a job. She's got to use
Uh,
all the tools in my book to find
exactly.
herself a job.
That's amazing. Awesome. Okay, well, we're going to transition into what I call the Rise Up and Be Visible quick tips. These are 4 questions that I ask every guest. So the first question for you, what is visibility and why did you answer that way?
Visibility to me is the idea that you are seen and heard in the way you want to be. Some people, who are extroverts like to be seen and heard as big influencers and, doing big things. But some people just want to be seen and heard for the job they're doing, for a job well done, or, for something special that they did out there in the world. So visibility to me is a personal thing, but it is the way people see you in the world and you get to decide how you show up.
Yeah, I love that you added that last piece because I think people don't understand that they have a choice. They can create the narrative that other people have about them, and they may not realize that. So I love that you shared that. Okay, what are you doing to be visible?
Oh, well, I'm here with you, right? I am doing a lot of podcasts. I am doing a lot of TV appearances, writing articles for several different magazines and trade journals. And, I'm just trying to get out there with a lot of speaking events because that is, and I'll throw this in there because I think this is such an important word for your listeners and it's in my book. It's the Japanese word called ikigai. And for those of you who don't know what ikigai is, it's this beautiful sweet spot in a Venn diagram of what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. And I am on a mission with my speaking events, with my workshops, and with every single coaching client to get as many people as possible into that sweet spot of ikigai.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I read that book a while ago. I was in a book club and that came up, and such a great book. I'd never heard of it before then.
So
Okay,
good.
this might be hard for you looking behind you, but what is a book you would recommend to the audience?
Yours, mine. No, I think that there's so many great books out there, and it really depends on where you are in your life and what you're looking for. There's a beautiful book that my friend Todd wrote, Todd Churches, on visual leadership. There is a wonderful book if you're feeling a little bit stuck and in that fog that my friend Victoria LaBalme wrote. There's so many, and I'm so blessed to know so many great authors and have read so many great books. But I would start with yours and mine, and then I would all of these wonderful, I like a good inspiring business book. Another really great one that I love is Chester Elton and Adrian Gostick have written a bunch of books about gratitude at work,
Oh, love that.
which is really
Oh,
one of the
I'm
things I love.
excited. I'm
Yeah,
excited. I always add everything that I hear from podcast guests to my own list, but
good.
I will definitely include them in the show notes so everybody can check them out, because those are some that I haven't heard of. So I'm sure
Great.
they haven't either. That's amazing. Okay, last question. What career or leadership advice have you received that was most meaningful to you?
I have a very, very dear mentor. He was my boss at Tribune Company, and he watched me as a young professional working very, very hard. And he said, "You need to take care of yourself." He said, I want you to go to the gym. We were lucky because we had a gym in our building in the Tribune Tower. I want you to go to the gym every day. I want you to take care of yourself. I want you to take a vacation once a quarter so that you don't burn out. And
Mhm.
I think that this is more important than ever now, because the recent stats that I just quoted on NBC recently were almost half of our country is burned out right now. And how do we combat that? We need to give ourselves some grace and give ourselves a little bit of breathing space, no matter how intense our jobs are.
Great advice. I love that he gave you that so early on in your career, right?
I
To
know.
know that. I mean, I think a lot of people don't feel like they have, I'll call it permission, right, to do those things. And I
Uh-huh.
think you need a leader that supports that to help you, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you, what you do, and your book?
Okay, well, anybody who's listening to this and feels inspired or moved, please connect with me on LinkedIn. As Sue and I talked about, LinkedIn is where it is at for professional networking, but you can also find me on Instagram at Mary Olson-Menzel, all one word, and just don't forget that it's Olson. And then you can also find more about what I'm doing with writing and speaking on the website, which is www.maryolsonmenzel. Don't forget, Olson.com. And then more about what we do as a team, my team at MVP, which is at www.mvpexec.com. So MVP Exec.
So much. I really want to encourage people to connect with her, to follow her. She is really living the light that she talks about. We've met maybe 3 times now, and I would say she is absolutely one of the most authentic people, and her actions and her words match every single day. And I know that she's helping so many people. So thank you for what you're doing in the world.
Thank you for having me. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Okay, everybody. Well, thanks so much for joining today on the Visibility Factor podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks so much for listening to the Visibility Factor podcast. Remember that visibility starts with small steps that are intentional and consistent each day. Be bold, be visible, be the leader you were meant to be. Find us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, which are highlighted in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Visibility Factor podcast.